This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Tom, welcome in, as always, to your usual time slot here on a Tuesday. I know that, again, Friday, everything gets going for Arkansas and preseason camp. A lot of the starting positions, at least in our eyes, have been locked up. Is there a player that you feel like are players that have a chance to maybe solidify themselves as a backup? Or who do you feel like has a chance to really improve his stock in the next couple weeks?
Good morning, guys. It's a pleasure to be on with you this morning. And when you said the program notes, this one got me happy because I think there's going to be, when you consider all of the ads from the portal after spring ball, there's going to be some major competition. I'm sure the coaches are pretty happy that guys like Booker on the defensive front and Kelvy Rose, the guy from Louisiana Tech, those guys are going to be fighting for time. And I think at linebacker, we saw that Pupal and Antonio Greer were kind of the main dudes, but Jordan Crook is like a young leader on this team, and so he's going to be fighting for a position on the depth chart. I'm going to throw out a name we haven't talked about a lot this summer because, the transfer receivers got a lot of hype, but I think Sam Bakke is going to, make a push. I think I talked to his coach, Shane Queen, yesterday about Malachi Singleton. Those guys came from the same high school, North Cobb, and near Kennesaw, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I think Bakke, he probably heard everybody or saw everybody writing and talking about all the transfer guys. But he and Jaden Wilson are kind of the holdovers, and Satania and a few others. And I think he's going to make a move. So, and then the safety positions and the backup cornerback spots are going to be on examination all camp.
Tom, I was going to ask you about Jaden Wilson again. Talking with Tom Murphy on the McClarty Daniel hotline. He was a guy that Sam Pittman, I think a year or so ago, said, "No one knows who you are. You get to make a name for yourself." What kind of impact do you think he could have this season in the wide receiver rotation?
Well, I think he can. And he tweeted something the other day about, "I'm reading everything," so. He's motivated. He during the winter, Sam Pittman talked him up heading into spring ball. Like this kid made some moves in the offseason, and then he broke his leg.
Yeah,
and so he's going to be highly motivated to be on the page with KJ, understand the offense, and get out there and make plays. I mean, one of the first impressions Arkansas fans will have of him was that he had a drop in I can't remember the game, but it was like a 3rd and 4 or something, and KJ hit him in the hands, and, I think he was turning, but he dropped it. And you're like, well, kid, that's not a way to stay on the field. And things like that, I'm sure, are very motivating for him. So I think we're going to see the best version of Jaden Wilson coming into the camp.
Tom, I was opining earlier that you can't overreact to what you see these first 2 or 3 days. Helmets and shorts, and, some people will try to declare, winners and losers for the season based on what happens the first few practices. How do you approach the first few practices, and what's more important than roll call these first few days?
Well, roll call, looking at depth, things like that, who gets dinged up. But I think we try to put it all in perspective. We understand those first few days, the linemen aren't getting the significant looks. But I tell you, they have found a way to practice when they are not in full pads that has a level of physicality to it that you wouldn't have seen 6 or 8 years ago. They practice physical. But yes, we're not going to blow out, overblow anything that occurs before the pads get on. But we are going to be aware of, who's catching passes, who does KJ look for the most, those kinds of things. And then, honestly, the safety depth. I mean, we know Hudson Clark will be back there, and, there'll be Malik Chavez, and there'll be some other guys. But, where does Jaheim Singletary line up? What about the other new DBs? There's going to be a lot of questions in camp for those guys.
Yeah, and I think, listening to Coach last week when he was with us, looking at the O-line depth and the battles for the number 2 spots, and he talked about not letting one injury create 2 moves. I think who could be the backup center and whether or not they can be someone that can walk into that position behind Bo Limmer is important. He mentioned Wiggins last week, Wiggins, that to me is another interesting watch that probably won't get a lot of attention in camp, but might change the course of a few decisions throughout the season.
You're right, absolutely right about that. And I bet you Wiggins is going to get some real good shots with the number two O line, because I want to say that they were moving some dudes around, and I think maybe Street got some looks. He's a walk on, and so I'm sure Wiggins will get every chance to be a guy who travels and earns the number 2 center spot.
And can Patrick Kudas hold down that right tackle spot? I think the tackle positions are still up for grabs to a great degree. There's probably 3 guys competing for 2 spots there.
I think so, and Crawford and Harris, I think, are going to be able to play both, but they really need Devin Manuel, and they need Patrick Kudas to be pushed. I mean, these guys, when you're replacing both your tackles in the same offseason, there's a level of trepidation that comes with that, and so they'll be under great examination. The good thing being that they've got some veterans on that line, and Latham and Lemmer, and that and Crawford's been here a long time now. I mean, it's time for Crawford, and I think I said this last week, but those Pittman recruits, not on the O-line, not a lot of those guys have hit the field much for the Razorbacks so far, and I think it's time they began contributing.
Tom Murphy with us on the McClarty Daniel hotline. And Tom, to that point, I know you just talked about kind of the changing at the tackle spots. Do you think fans are concerned about that, even with Sam Pittman as the head coach heading into this fall?
Well, I think it would rank among the concerns. Backup QB, what we've seen in the games, Cade Fortin, he would need to be better to give them a chance to win a game. I mean, he threw a great touchdown pass to Matt Landers against LSU, but when he got a shot against Mississippi State, it didn't go very well. A lot of that wasn't his own problem, but it just didn't go too well. What you just mentioned will be under scrutiny or a concern for fans. I mean, whether or not the receiving core is really legit. I mean, I've said over and over this summer with you guys that what I saw from Armstrong and Tesla and Satania and Bryce Stevens, I think they're going to be okay. But what if Bakke and Wilson really come on, and then suddenly you got yourself some depth? And so I think all those, and safety and D tackle are where your biggest concerns. And honestly, I mean, Fletcher kind of had the starting job to start last year and then lost it, and Reed Bauer got it back yet again. And so Fletcher has got to show a lot more consistency at punter than what he showed in his the parts of last year.
You mentioned Cade Fortin in the backup role. We've been told that seems a little bit more solidified heading this year. Tommy and I were kicking around this earlier. How many wins do you think KJ Jefferson is worth compared to if Arkansas was to lose him for the year?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand how that computes into a number. But let's just say they had a healthy KJ for every game last year. I think obviously you make the argument you could win the Liberty game. Okay, and then the LSU game he didn't play, but yet I maintained LSU kept it on kind of just low burner just to win the game, and if they needed to, they might have opened up more. So that one to me is a coin flip if KJ's healthy. Certainly Arkansas is more potent offensively in that game. But the others, I mean, Mississippi State, they didn't have him. What would it have meant if they did have him? I'm not sure. State got out to such a great start. It's hard to, imprint KJ's presence on that game. The Alabama game, he was healthy for most of it. They were making a great comeback until that horrendous non-call on the long run by Milroe. So I think two would be, the high end of how many more wins Arkansas would have had with KJ.
You got your sunscreen packed for Friday, high 104, Tom. I know you're going to be out there. You got your sunscreen ready to go. Make sure you don't get burned.
I've been doing a lot outside. Even though I didn't have my garden this year, I keep my sunblock in the back of my car. And so it's always very, very handy. And I'll have hats and long sleeves. My dermatologist tells me to wear long sleeve and protect my arms. And so I will have all that ready to go. And I hope you guys do too. Come out.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Murphy with us on the McClarty Daniel Hotline. Tomorrow, We're going to hear from Sam Pittman to preview camp. Ben Souders, the strength and conditioning coach, will also be alongside to answer questions about summer conditioning. Why should we take more stock in what happened this summer versus previous years or any other year? Why is what they're telling us about this summer and the gains, why is it different this year, Tom?
Well, I don't know if it's, remarkably different, but we do hear good things about what the work Ben Souders has done. I mean, I'm going to take prime example one, and that would be Landon Jackson's transformation. But I've talked to some of the freshmen I'm doing Hog Futures on, Carson Dean, for instance. He's a fast kid, and he's talking about this whole team is getting faster. So they did some things to work on not only getting everybody's body weight the way they want it, but also to increase team speed. And if you can do that, then you can make up for little errors. You can, if you turn your hips, you can catch up to a receiver maybe. Overall team speed is something that over the years since Arkansas has been in the SEC, they haven't been graced with a ton of it across the board type speed. But when they do have them, Traylon Burks, they can be difference makers. And if you can do that and make all your weight room games translate onto the field, then you're all the better off for competing in the SEC.
My guess is we're going to hear more from Sam Pittman about the kind of the shift in mindset and the elevation of toughness compared to last year. He spoke a lot about that at SEC Media Days. He spoke about that when he joined us here on the Morning Rush. What do you hear in what he's saying, and what do you expect to see when we get on the practice field Friday that will be different in the way he addresses toughness and the way he orchestrates and organizes practices now versus, say, a year ago?
Right. You got to be smart about your toughness, meaning, how often you're in full pad, how often you tackle to the ground and all that. But I just think it means more mental toughness. And I already thought that under Sam Pittman, since the game one, the Georgia game to open 2020, they've been a different type of team. Now, they've had a little bit of struggles in the close games. I mean, and that was kind of a thing in the Brett Bielema regime. 2015, they should have won 2 or 3 more games. And Sam Pittman, last year, you could argue they should have won a couple of more. And so, to me, the toughness is there. Are they a little bit tougher? You got to hope so. And then, what does that mean on the field? Can you make that second and goal from the 1-yard line against LSU? Can you push that in? And if they can do that with more frequency, then you see how that translates into winning more football games. And you can simplify it that way. You got to have the talent, and you got to have toughness, and you got to make winning plays at key times. And they feel like they're in a better position to do that this season.
I don't know how much practice we'll get to watch, how many scrimmages will be open for our eyes, but my guess is the scripts for practice will contain more short yardage situations. They're going to find out who the men are on the lines of scrimmage, and it may not be 4th and goal at the 1. It may be 4th and 1 at the 47. They're both important. I think they're going to find out who they can count on in those big moments to move the chains or to get across the goal line. My guess is practices will have a bigger taste of that this year.
Absolutely, they will, and we know that from how much they worked on it in spring. And Dan Enos walks in and Sam says, "Here's where we're going to get better: short yardage, 4th down, and that kind of stuff." And you triggered something in my mind when you asked me that question. I think Sam was misconstrued at media days. He said something about not going on 4th down, and so I think the people who were there who don't cover Arkansas probably meant that he thought they went on 4th down too much. And I think what he meant was he wants to be a coach who believes in his team, and the team believes that they can convert them, and they want to go on 4th down more often, because that's what we know he talked about in spring was running 3rd down plays with the understanding that you're going to have another down to convert it. And not that they're going to go crazy and be a team that goes 40 times on 4th downs, but I think they've been maybe in the teens on 4th down attempts. And if they push that into the mid-20s or high 20s, then that might be an area Sam's comfortable with. And that's all a part of what you just asked. How tough are you? Can you get 4th and 1? Can you score from the goal line against LSU or Missouri? I mean, when you think about all the plays last year that backfired or, didn't work, running Trey Knox under center and taking a snap at the goal line against Missouri, that was one of the worst.
Oh, thanks for reminding us, Tom. Let's end it right there. We'll pick it up again on Thursday
PTSD,
with you.
Tom.
Oh, my Lord. I don't think we'll see nearly as much of that stuff this year. So, all right, Tom, good stuff. Looking forward to talking to you Thursday. Maybe see you this weekend at practice.
Yeah, it's going to be some material right there. We'll see y'all.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.